Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and see exactly how HPE Morpheus VM Essentials version 8.1.2 is completely changing the daily workflow for IT system administrators. Look, if you've been tasked with wrangling fragmented hypervisors, or you're trying to figure out how to build a resilient, highly available environment without pulling your hair out, you are in the exact right place. We're going to break down why HPE released this product and how it literally acts as a unified command center for your entire infrastructure. We've got a packed agenda today that actually follows your day in the life workflow. We'll be looking at 1. The unified sysadmin solution, 2. Building resilient HVM clusters, 3. Storage and networking fundamentals, 4. Provisioning and hardware pass-through, and 5. Operations, health, and licensing.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the unified sysadmin solution.
Now you can see the night and day difference in infrastructure management here. The old way? Well, it meant constantly bouncing between siloed KVM management and your VMware vCenter, right? You were probably relying on manual failovers and entirely separate monitoring tools. But the new way with VM Essentials completely unifies your KVM-based HVM workloads and your existing VMware vCenter clouds under one intuitive manager. It's all about giving you a single pane of glass to provision, monitor, and automate across both of those environments seamlessly. It really is a game changer. To really get the most out of this platform, you need to grasp a pretty major conceptual shift. If you're coming strictly from VMware, you probably think of an instance as just one single virtual machine. But here in VM Essentials, an instance is actually a representation of an entire resource or service. Think of, say, a horizontally scaled web server or a full database cluster. The instance represents the whole shebang, which might contain multiple underlying VMs. It's a much more modern application-centered way of looking at your deployments. Moving right along, Section 2, Building Resilient HVM Clusters. So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the base requirements for an HCVM cluster. This technology utilizes KVM under the hood. Now, while you technically can run a non-HCI cluster on a single host or even on nested VMs just for testing, if you want full performance and that true hyperconverged infrastructure layout, you absolutely need at least 3 physical hosts. And currently, those need to be pre-existing Ubuntu 24.04 boxes. Starting with that solid physical 3-node foundation is what actually enables the magic we're about to look at next. As a sysadmin, you're gonna absolutely love these features because they actively reduce your manual workload. By having that 3-nodal minimum we just talked about, you unlock automated DRS, which dynamically distributes your workloads based on resource consumption. And if a host goes down, boom, you have automatic failover for your running workloads. Need to do some hardware maintenance? You get live migration of VMs across your cluster with literally 0 downtime. Basically, you might actually get to enjoy your weekend instead of doing maintenance at 2 a.m. It even supports UEFI and brownfield discovery, which means it can find and automatically manage VMs that already exist in your environment. All right, Section 3, Storage and Networking Fundamentals. Let me be crystal clear about this. For clustered storage, your network interfaces must be at least 10 gigabits per second, and you must have jumbo frames enabled. If you try running all your traffic, management, compute, and storage through a single interface without these specs, the documentation explicitly states your performance is going to be unacceptable. So this isn't just a friendly recommendation, it's a hard, non-negotiable requirement for a healthy cluster. We've put together the exact HVM network communication ports right here, so you have your firewall rules ready to go from day one. You'll notice that most of your management, console, and Seth storage traffic relies on standard TCP ports like 443 and 7443. But pay really close attention to that bottom row. CoreOSync, which handles the clustering heartbeat, requires UDP ports 5404 through 5406. Missing that specific UDP role is a classic gotcha, and it will absolutely prevent your cluster hosts from communicating properly. Now, moving over to storage. Setting up GFS2 shared disk file systems is what actually makes those 0 downtime live migrations possible. It allows multiple nodes to access the exact same block storage, and the process is surprisingly straightforward. First, you create your LUN on your storage array and map it to a nice SCSI target. Then, make sure concurrent connections are enabled and decide on your CHAP authentication. Once you've knocked out those array side steps, you simply add the target in the VM Essentials UI, and the manager handles all the complex multipathing for you automatically. It's incredibly smooth. Okay, everyone, pay very close attention to this next gotcha. When you're adding that data store in the UI, you are going to see a little checkbox labeled Allow Reformatting. If you check this box, VM Essentials will aggressively reformat the disk if it doesn't immediately see a GFS2 file system. This will utterly destroy any data currently sitting on that block storage. Checking this box by accident is a fantastic way to suddenly free up your calendar because you'll probably be looking for a new job. Seriously though, please verify your loans twice and check your boxes very carefully.
Let's dive into Section 4, Provisioning and Hardware Pass-Through.
What's really fantastic here is the sheer efficiency of the provisioning engine. You don't have to learn 3 completely different deployment processes anymore. You just learn one powerful provisioning wizard. So whether you are deploying a Windows image into your VMware vCenter, spinning up a Linux workload on your brand new HVM cluster, or pushing a container to a Docker host, it is all managed through the exact same unified interface. Now, if you have hardware-accelerated workloads, VM Essentials lets you claim and pool physical host devices right into the VMs themselves. You can pass through full PCI devices, pool your local NVMe drives, and even pass through USB devices. And for GPUs, it's incredibly seamless. You can actually attach GPU hardware right at provision time simply by selecting a custom service plan that you've configured. And here is a really handy operational shortcut. Let's say you physically install a new NVMe drive or a new GPU into one of your cluster hosts. VM Essentials runs a short sync every few minutes, sure, but major hardware changes are only picked up during the nightly sync. If you don't want to sit around waiting until tomorrow to use that new drive, just head over to the Cluster Actions menu in the UI and hit Refresh Daily. That forces the sync right then and there, making your hardware immediately available for pooling. Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, Operations, Health, and Licensing. You're definitely going to want to add these exact thresholds to your monitoring dashboards today. The VM Essentials Manager will throw itself into a yellow warning state if swap usage crosses 60%, or if your root file system utilization goes over 80%. If that root file system hits 90%, it escalates straight to a red error status. Also, keep a close watch on your VM Essentials memory. If the processes consume more than 95% of your available memory, you probably need to upgrade your appliance specs. Beyond standard CPU and RAM, you really need to keep an eye on these 3 application-level indicators. If your database connections hit their maximum limit, or if your Elasticsearch indices drop out of a healthy green status, you'll start seeing warnings. But particularly, watch those RabbitMQ queues. If you ever see over 1,000 messages piling up in a queue, that triggers an error state, and it means you've got a serious appliance bottleneck that needs immediate troubleshooting. Here's a quick look at the actual UI where you can track your license consumption, specifically looking at your HVM sockets. You can clearly see your total license sockets versus what's still unused. This is super critical to monitor because if this license expires, or if you completely max out your allocated HVM sockets, the system strictly prevents you from provisioning any new instances or clusters. Now, your existing setup will keep functioning just fine, but your growth will be locked. Eventually, your organization might outgrow Essentials and need full orchestration for public clouds like AWS or Azure. When that time comes, the enterprise upgrade path is totally ready for you because it's built on the exact same architecture. It's a native upgrade. You simply remove the HPE VM Essentials package via the command line and clean up the ephemeral OpenSearch performance data directories since the enterprise version shifts over to Elasticsearch. It really is a clean, straightforward elevation path. And that brings us to the end of this explainer. We've seen how unifying your hypervisors, automating your DRS, and utilizing GFS2 storage can create a seriously resilient environment. I want you to think about it. With zero downtime maintenance and automated failovers natively built in, how many late-night weekend support calls will VM Essentials save you this year? Reclaiming that manual troubleshooting time could completely transform your IT operations. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into HPE Morpheus VM Essentials.